Greetings and welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. 23 young people from 13 CARICOM member states will deepen their understanding of the CARICOM single market and economy by participating in the CARICOM Young Professionals Program. It was launched at the Secretariat's headquarters in Georgetown, Guyana on the 2nd of June. Now, we're very happy we're going to be finding out a little more about the program and what it hopes to achieve by speaking with Program Manager, Youth Development at the CARICOM Secretariat, Michele Small Bartley. Greetings, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing fabulous this morning. How are you doing?
I'm curious. And I say I'm curious because people talk about the youth of the future, but at the same time, I want to ask what led to the development of this program?
Well, I hope I will be able to fulfill your curiosity. Essentially, what happened is that there is an emerging recognition for the need for more meaningful youth engagement. That was one of the main impetus why we developed this program. Additionally, there were other empirical data that was pointing us to the fact that there's an education gap in terms of the knowledge that young people have about the CSME. We also realize that in terms of the accessibility to information on the CSME, that most of the documents that were being published were published more as official documents or government documents. We also know that our young people don't have sometimes access to those documents. And even sometimes when they do have access, they're not accessing those documents. So how do we bridge that gap? In addition to that, we recognize that there was somewhat of a limited engagement where it wasn't only because of the information gap, but there's also a negative perception that was associated with the CSME, thinking that it was only for policymakers and for business owners. And so we wanted to bridge all of those gaps to sort of bring it all together, to bring together some young people, intelligent young people who are working within the industry to help them to understand the CSME, how it can benefit them and how they can advocate and build their awareness of other young people. So that's essentially what pushed us to actually start the whole development of this program.
And that's a mouthful, and I hope that we have the opportunity to break down some of those pieces, because even when you look at the issue of access, one, whether or not in certain types of information are accessible in the first place, but then two, sometimes when there's a document or piece of information that is accessible, sometimes it feels as though there's so much there that people don't try to take bite-sized pieces. So in terms of getting that access so that it becomes a lot more common knowledge, I'm already pushing things and asking whether or not this is something that might be possible to scale out a little bit so that that information, it gets to more people.
Well, I'm sure, absolutely sure that our communications unit and the CSME unit will be working very closely together and have been working very closely together. We are aware that young people, as they develop, it's more about the bits of information. If you notice the reels, a couple seconds, and that information sticks. So once you have it being repeated continuously, it's being reinforced in very small bit sizes. So that is something that we have been doing. If you go on our social media, you'll recognize more so as it relates to youth development, you'll realize that we have quite a bit of information that we have been putting out over the past few months into a year now, emphasizing information that are relevant to young people, but of course, in the manner in which it is supposed to be more appetizing and appealing to them.
I know sometimes we reach to the end of the conversation and then we ask, well, what's contact information? Where can people find more? Let me get that. No, please.
Yes. So even with us as as grown adults and coming out of our era, even with us when we listen to this when we listen to information, sometimes even in the middle of it, when we have heard half of it, we're still wondering what is being said. So it has to be done in such a way that it appeals to the listener. And we recognize the characteristics of our young people, and so we will try to meet those needs of our young people in the things that we do.
And what are the social media handles for the Secretariat?
Well, we have Twitter, we have the Instagram, we have Facebook, and we have our own page that we use to display information as well.
All right, and then we'll put that up on so people will be able to see that as the conversation progresses. But 23 young people, how do you go about saying, okay, well, these are the people that we want, these are the people that we're looking for? What are the parameters of going through in terms of a process like this? Because you'll always find somebody, so why didn't get somebody from this? Why didn't I get more people? So take me through that process, thank you.
I'm glad you asked that question because, you know, one of the young people came to me on Monday and she said to me, I'm so grateful for the process that was used for selecting us to come on this program. So we had a very robust selection process. We liaised with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with an application form that indicated very strict criteria. And in that process, we ask that the information be sent out to the different ministries and agencies in government. And we specifically targeted government, the public sector, because these are young people who are actually working within the sector. And so I think it would be it's best for them first to be the first ones to have that information so that they can take it out. So that was one of the first things we did. We had the criteria and these applications came in. Now, we had to narrow the application based on the time limit that we have, of course, because the number of calls that were coming in to us, I'm sure we would have had applications that we would not be able to manage. So we asked each ministry to submit 6 participants, 6 candidates that were likely to be a part of the program using the criteria that we had given to them. After those came into, when we got those applications, we have an evaluation selection committee that we also use that consisted of 4 program managers and our project assistant. And so what we did, we did a thorough assessment, and this was a long process, a thorough assessment of each of the applications. We vetted, they all had to write an essay in terms of why is it that why is it that they wanted to be a part of the program? How would they contribute to the sustainability of the program? It was interesting, and I have to add this based, especially in the era of AI, that there were some that came in that we smiled when we read them, because we realized that it wasn't coming from a place of passion, but a place of the keyboard and the computer. So we went through those thoroughly, and those that matched the criteria that we had, the selection was made. And so we sent out to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and informed them of the 2 persons, because based on the budget that we had, we weren't able to select more than 2 persons in this cohort. So we selected the 2 persons and informed the ministry, and those are the persons who represent the program now as participants.
But I'm glad what I'm hearing from you speaks to how robust that process was, because it is the easiest thing for individuals who may not have been successful or found out about it after to want to come and cast aspersions as to that selection process, because they weren't successful. And I also like the fact that there's a level of sustainability and looking and saying not just what the program can give individuals, but what they can give back to it. And that is something that we're going to be speaking about when we return from this conversation. Well, return from the break rather. We are speaking with Michele Small Bartley, Program Manager, Youth Development at the CARICOM Secretariat. Stay with us. We return after this. Welcome back. We are speaking to CARICOM Enhancing Skills of Young Professionals as CSME ambassadors. We're doing so with Program Manager Michele Small Bartley. And to each, yes, when does the program start? What is the duration? What are some of the things that are going to be covered?
Okay, so the program starts on the 2nd of June, and it's the first week of the program is actually face-to-face. The other aspect of the program is hybrid. So it lasts for a period of 4.5 months. So it finishes at the first week in October. And during that period, when they're away from the Secretariat, they will be given assignments. We have a consultant who actually works with these young people, and they will be given assignment within the different ministries that they work or agencies. And they will actually be meeting with that consultant on a weekly basis for both deliverance of their presentations as well as continued learning. Now, the program itself consists of a number of areas in the CSME, identifying some of the opportunities and benefits, identifying the protocols and regime. What we have done, however, is made the program very experiential, where they are able to see themselves in the whole process. In addition to that, so it's not only about self. What we have done, we have actually invited in Ghanese nationals who have actually established businesses outside of Ghana and who have become citizens through naturalization in other Caribbean countries. These are actual witness of the whole CSME process. And so they were able to, through these testimonies and these experiences, they were able to understand and learn that it's not only for policymakers or business owners, it's for anybody who wants to move within the region. And they were able to see how the economic integration that can actually take place, because there was one speaker in particular who spoke about his business that he established in Barbados, and he moved from Barbados to St. Lucia. And when he spoke about the widespread of his business and he told them the process that he went through, I could see the faces in the room light up, because it's about the reality of the benefits that comes from the CSME. I will mention, however, that in October, they will also be meeting face-to-face. So we will have them here again for the finalization, where they will do a grand presentation, and we will have a closing ceremony where we will actually present them with a branded certificate.
And you're saying this and you're talking about people lighting up, and I'm lighting up a little bit, because this doesn't feel like the typical run-of-the-mill, all right, well, you do this and you get a certificate of participation, as opposed to literally, because part of it is also networking and having the experiences of people who have gone through and tested and examined what is possible through CSME, and being able to say, this worked for me, this is my experience. You might want to do it a little differently because, and everyone is tweaking it for themselves. But I think it's also very important that we see the range of possibilities that we have within this space. Because I think sometimes when people hear the word opportunity, they think of one of those jurisdictions that many people call a metropole. And a lot of those places say no thank you, now when people are trying to make their way there. So in terms of exploring our own, loving our own, and seeing that so much of this is possible, I think is really important. But being the child of teachers and looking at how this could be a data mining exercise as well, in terms of during the 4.5 months, realizing some of the things that work in terms of communication so that you're grabbing those lessons to put it into what it is you do going forward. But are there indicators that you're using along the way in terms of like this 4.5 month period?
Well, yes, we are. There is a robust monitoring and evaluation tool that has been developed. And one of the things that we would have done at the beginning of the program is to have them to do a pre-test. And so we will be using those indicators in the end as well to do a post-test to see if there are any shifts that had taken place. I need to also mention as it relates to the program itself, because you mentioned that it was a robust approach. And one of the things that we do in the Secretariat when we relate to our young people is embedded within each of our programs is the positive youth development approach that is used, where we are cognizant of the fact that as human beings, we need to learn. It needs to be reinforced, and learning will take place only when there is interest. And so one of the things, one of the approach that the consultant has been using is what is considered the 4 S's. The spark, so you spark the interest in these young people. Then you try to stretch the imagination a bit. And after you stretch the imagination, it's really taking them out of that comfort zone that they're in. And then you shift, try to reframe and have them reflect, and then you sustain the information that they have learned, ensuring that it is embedded. So we try to use that perspective in all of the programs that we have developed for youth or young people.
Now you say that Ms. Small Bartley and are going to steal or borrow heavily from that 4S model, because I really like it. And once again, there's so much that has to do with the thought processes. Because it seems as though sometimes when we think, okay, I may not be able to do this here, but I can do it next door in a jurisdiction here, I can do it next door in a jurisdiction here. These resources can come from here. I don't need to look at the supply chain all the way over there because they're available at this point in time, and seeing what it is we're able to do. But ultimately, what do you want the program to achieve?
Okay, so there are a number of things that we want to achieve from this program. One, at the end, I shouldn't say at the end, as we go along, we are building a network of young people that will help in terms of advocating, helping to build the knowledge and awareness of other young people out there. We are trying to empower them so that they can actually champion the whole regional integration and economic cooperation that should exist within our region. Also, the whole idea of mentorship will be used for the purpose of sustaining, as I mentioned before, but it will also be used so that we can actually foster that intergenerational gap. We recognize that, yes, us, the more mature ones, have information. We know how to use this information, but let us be real, we won't be around forever. So we have to prepare and empower our young people to move forward with that information so that we can guarantee when we go that we will have leaders who can actually manage and do better than we did. So that's one of the things that we want to do. Also, we want to increase the level of awareness of young people, not only the group that we're working with, but to expand that information a bit. And how are we going to be doing this? We are also going to be working with our CYAs, which is our CARICOM Youth Ambassadors. And they will be working along with the young professionals to build initiatives that will actually take it a little bit further within the communities, so that other young people can understand what is happening understand the CSME and understand what is happening with it. And so with this perspective, we intend to somewhat institutionalize the whole perspective of the CSME by implementing the regional policies that are necessary, and also to have the voice of our young people as part of the whole developmental process. There's a saying that was coined, I think it was immediately after COVID: nothing with us without us. And that was coined by the young people. And the reason why that was coined is because it has become very obvious that sometimes we go about doing things without involving those persons who are beneficiaries. But we want to recognize that young people aren't only beneficiaries, but they're also partners in the process. And this is one of the things in terms of our whole strategic priority, that we are trying to make young people partners through the empowerment and through meaningful engagement.
Speaking of
So
engagement,
that's
please. So
well, that's basically what I was saying in terms of bringing it all together and having this program not only happening today or during this phase, but hopefully within the future we can engage another set of young people to reinforce the whole process and to have it continued. And if in the event that we're not able to do so, because a lot of this has to do with availability of funds, one of the things that we can guarantee is that the set of young people that are here will actually help us to sustain and to ensure that knowledge is passed on. Internally, we will be doing our monitoring and evaluation. We will be doing our mentorship. We will ensure that whatever we have started, that we will follow up with these young people and just not let them go like that. But we will ensure that their hands are being held.
I'm grateful. This seems as though this is an agile process that is able to make tweaks as you progress. Because even looking at that, nothing without us, sometimes there's this level of disconnect by people creating policy and then the people who are supposed to be using that policy, and that the potential for that happens even more now, looking at the way that technology is just flying by leaps and bounds, if not something even faster than that. But I'm very happy, though very sad, when we run out of time for a conversation, because that means that there was so much more to speak about. So hopefully we can commit to having more of these conversations and building the insight and sharing the knowledge. Thank you very much, Ms. Michele Small Bartley, Program Manager, Youth Development at the CARICOM Secretariat. This has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.